Papers, Please is a video game released in 2013 for the PC and subsequently released for OS X, Linux, and iOS in 2014. There was also a PS Vita port released near the end of 2017. The game's creator Lucas Pope described it as a dystopian document thriller. Basically, it's a game where you check people's passports and decide whether or not they can enter your country. It's not exactly something people would hear and immediately respond with, "Wow, that sounds like it'd be really fun." Against all expectations, the game went on to become one of the most celebrated indie games of all time. It won a ton of awards from various award ceremonies, including the Strategy and Simulation Award from BAFTA and the Excellence in Design Award from the Independent Games Festival. It's been 7 years since the release of Papers, Please, and I'm very well aware that I'm late to the party. I've always been hearing about how good the game is, but only got the chance to play it this year. And let me just say that I'm really glad people are still talking about this game. Just after spending around 7 hours playing it, it has quickly become one of my favorite games of all time. And I made this video to talk about why. Particularly, I want to talk about how Papers, Please teaches empathy. You see, the great thing about video games compared to other mediums of entertainment such as film and books is that it allows us to immerse ourselves on an extremely deep level with the player character. There are a lot of games that I can list that do this very well, but to keep it short, 2 games immediately come to my mind, which are God of War 2018 and The Last of Us, the first game I mean. There's a multitude of reasons why these 2 games are loved by almost everyone who plays them, but in the laundry list of praises that these games get, they share one similar compliment: fatherhood, or rather the very empathetic simulation of fatherhood. In both games, the player controls a fatherly character who must guide and protect their child. Of course, it's not exactly an accurate representation of what actual parenting is like, but the experience is enough to make a lot of people say, "Damn, fatherhood is really tough," and I have a lot more respect for fathers out there. To me, a game that manages to leave you with that kind of impression is a very good game. Alright, back to Papers, Please. The premise of Papers, Please is very simple, but quite unique in the realm of video games. Instead of playing as a dashing action hero tasked with saving the world from one evil or another, you're just put in the shoes of a middle-aged immigration inspector. What's worse is that you didn't even choose this job, it was chosen for you. Well, that's just how life is in Arstotzka, the fictional totalitarian state that forms the backdrop of Papers, Please. Being an immigration inspector at one of Arstotzka's borders isn't an easy job, primarily because the country has a lot of bad blood, especially with its immediate neighbor Kolechia. Aside from facing occasional terrorist attacks, there are other issues that make your job tougher, such as pandemics and economic disagreements with other countries. Besides your state-determined job, you're also responsible for taking care of your own family, which consists of your wife, son, mother-in-law, and uncle. If you mess up too much at your job, you won't get paid enough to pay the bills and put food on the table. So there's always the looming threat of homelessness, starvation, sickness, and consequently death. So far, the game isn't sounding all that fun, isn't it? Well, that's where the gameplay comes in. The progression of the game is categorized by days. Every day is split into 2 parts, the first being the part where you do your job as an immigration inspector, and the other part where you manage your finances to take care of yourself and your family. The core gameplay lies in the first part. Every day you read the newspapers and get a rough idea of the current zeitgeist. And this affects the daily bulletin you receive from the Ministry of Admission, aka your employer. Oh, look at that, a wanted murderer is on the run, and so the head honchos give you the authority to detain suspicious individuals. What's this? The local media reports that immigrants are taking our jobs? Well, starting from today, foreigners must show work passes if they want to work in Arstotzka. But wait, there's more. There's also the minute-to-minute challenge of making decisions for people that don't have the right paperwork. For example, a couple escaping from their own tyrannical government is immigrating to your country, but gosh darn it, the wife is missing some of the necessary paperwork. The clock is ticking and you have to make a decision. Do you reject the woman and send her back to her country where she is probably going to be killed? Or do you let her through and increase your chances of getting sent to a labor camp for not doing your job right? Mind you, your family won't be able to take care of themselves without you, so you're not the only one at risk here. Moral dilemmas such as this one happen very regularly in Papers, Please. I'm talking about almost every minute, and time is a very important factor. You're only given roughly 8 minutes every day to process as many people as you can. The amount of people you correctly reject or accept decides how much you get paid. Take too long to make decisions or make too many mistakes, and you won't have enough money to take care of your family. This is a game that constantly bombards you with the difficult question of what is the right thing to do? Is it right for me to help others but put my own family in danger? Is it wrong for me to ignore the plights of strangers and just do my job? And that's why Papers, Please is a brilliant game. This is how Papers, Please establishes itself as an empathy game. Arstotzka is an entirely fictional country, and everyone in this game are fictional people, but the situation that this game portrays is very, very real. Sure, it's not 100% accurate, but it's a snapshot of how people behaved in totalitarian countries, and at the same time, it's still relevant for a lot of third world and developing countries where corruption is rampant. The game teaches us that issues such as corruption and morality are way more complex than they appear to be. Is a man truly evil for obeying his tyrannical government for the sake of protecting his family? Is it immoral to ignore the humanity of others and just consider everyone the living, breathing counterpart of a passport? There are no easy answers to these questions, and that's why I love this game. Like any good movie or book, it makes you think. Even better, it makes you think about the difficulties faced by human beings put in situations you yourself will probably never experience. In other words, you're being taught empathy. Another perspective I consider valuable is making the players think about the whole oppressor and oppressed dynamic in totalitarian governments. In the abridged version of Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago, he would use phrases like Stalin, in brackets, and you and I as well, and in quotes, because of us, when talking about atrocities during the Stalin years of Soviet Russia. I understood it as him surrendering to the fact that in those horrible situations, we are both oppressor and oppressed. In the case of Papers, Please, there's no doubt that you play the role of an oppressor. You are, after all, a cog in the totalitarian machine that powers your country. There will be many times where you reject people and even detain them because, quote unquote, you're just doing your job. At the same time, the government pays you very poorly and is always threatening to send you to labor camps or even worse, execute you and your entire family. Simply put, you are both oppressor and oppressed. I consider this a very good lesson because I think it's really naive to believe that in the unfortunate event of our own countries becoming tyrannical and extreme in the future, we're convinced we would be on the right side of history. We would be on the side of the good guys who will go against the quote-unquote evil regime. That kind of confidence seems very misplaced in my opinion. It's important to always remind ourselves that the people who went on to support the formation of Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia are just as human as we are. This lesson also applies to everyone living in every generation. We are always oppressor and oppressed. There's always someone out there doing worse than we are, and there's always someone out there doing better. Sometimes we get to where we are in life because of certain privileges, but we're also burdened with certain challenges that we must overcome. Life isn't easy, and everyone has a complicated story to tell. More than 1.8 million copies of Papers, Please have been sold ever since it was released. And I believe every person who played this game has been given a new perspective whenever they travel abroad, particularly at immigration checkpoints. Every time they look at the immigration officer stamping their passports, they'll be reminded of Papers, Please. They might not completely understand what's going on in the immigration officer's life, but at the very least, they'll probably whisper in their hearts, "This is a tough job, and I hope things are going well for you and your family. Ultimately, Papers, Please wants you to understand others. It's a game that wants you to have a bit more patience with people and try to delve into who they are and the difficulties they face in their daily lives. It's a game that wants you to remember the words of Roman African playwright Terence, or Publius Terentius Afer. I am human, and nothing human is alien to me. Thank you very much for watching my video. If you liked it, do click on that like button, and if you think there's something that needs improving, do leave a comment below. This is only my second video on this channel, and I do plan on making more. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to watch more videos like this. I love talking about video games and probably will do more of that in the future. So yeah, thanks again, and bye-bye.